Hi, folks. Good afternoon. My name is Raj Koneru. I'm the founder and CEO of Kore.ai. Thanks for taking the time today. We call this tour reimagine. We started that out, like Michael said, at our customer conference about a month ago in Orlando, and we had a pretty good audience for that one. But not everybody could make it, so we said we'll go on the road and present some of this content on the road as well. But firstly, many of you may not know who we are, right? I mean, just to give some perspective, we're an 11-year-old company, just not based here, basically, based out of Florida, and with operations all over the world. And strangely enough, about 11 years ago, we decided to focus on AI and focus on building a native AI platform that enterprises can use to build out their use cases. And up until 2 years ago, most of the use cases were chatbots, voice bots, primarily around customer service automation, and to some extent around employee service automation. Obviously, all of us know what happened, 2.5, 3 years ago, with the LLMs coming in and all of the capabilities that these models have brought to the table. The scope of where AI can apply has changed significantly, right? It's expanded. It's can be applied in every function, in pretty much every system. And there's some predictions that software applications, as we know it, will change as well, basically. And they may or they may not, but AI being applied in every single application is already happening in many ways. But there are some important elements to think about, right? We had the internet revolution, we had the mobile revolution, and somewhere in between the cloud revolution, if you will. But those took time from an innovation standpoint, and obviously it takes time for enterprises to adopt each of those technologies. But with the AI revolution, the pace of innovation far outstrips the ability for enterprises to actually put it to work. By the time they put something to work, it's already changed. Something better has come. The models are obviously leading a lot of that, but how those models are being delivered by the cloud providers is also changing pretty rapidly. And I've spent a lot of time in the last 4 or 5 months with the hyperscalers, and there's a lot going on that can enable enterprises to start using AI, basically with the models, but also with a lot of other components that they're building. So talking about models, we have all types, right? Obviously, cost, speed, reliability. There are models that are very targeted and deliberate. There are the small models, which are actually what we are seeing in enterprises, are more apt for many, many of the use cases. So this goal to go after artificial general intelligence, maybe a goal for OpenAI and some others, but really from a practical use of models for different use cases, what we are finding is the SLMs are most suitable, and some of the medium-sized models are most suitable. But then we come from a world of what used to be called conversational AI as a space, right? And the biggest issue with conversational AI was NLP. The ability for the machine to understand your intent and be able to extract out the data that you provide in your instruction or in your utterance. And with whatever the models that existed during that time, you had to train those models with your data. That was laborious, and that took time. But the one thing, if I can say, we've experienced in the deployments that we're doing with the LLMs is the understanding capability is solved. It's the ability for a model, given some context, to understand your intent or intents and provide a response, basically, is essentially there's no more NLP as a challenge at this point in time. But the next one, which is growing very fast, is planning. When you give an instruction, a complex instruction or a complex prompt, being able to break that up into a series of steps, basically to achieve what you wanted in your instruction, is also at pretty good accuracy levels right now, basically. And the interdependencies between the steps are also sort of pretty accurate for many, many use cases. And the big focus right now is on reasoning. And reasoning also has improved significantly in the last couple of years. So we're actually using it in some very complex use cases for very large volume use cases, albeit that you need to ground it, you need to put some boundaries around it with guardrails and other components. But the amount of reasoning that we are seeing available right now can solve for a lot of the use cases around service and work as we see it. And the next big one that everybody is like sort of expecting will change how these models respond is in multimodal, right? Video, audio, images, tables. I mean, one of the things with generative AI is all of us in IT for the longest time dealt with structured data. We rarely dealt with unstructured data other than doing, keyword search or some kind of semantic search, essentially. But unstructured data is written by humans. Basically, the context of what that human wrote at that moment in time, based on what he or she intended that particular document for, is not known, essentially. But in that unstructured documents, you have tables, and tables have context. They have rows and columns, and those need to be disappeared, and that's a challenge. So we're starting to see being able to answer a question with data from a table is slowly getting solved. Same thing with audio and video and images to some extent, essentially. And each of the models are at different levels in terms of being able to solve for that. And then comes language. I was talking to somebody earlier today about support for different languages in speech, but just support for languages in general, all the primary languages in the world, is again something that many of the models, if not most of them, have solved for in terms of at least the understanding ability and the generation ability, basically. It still is a bit of a challenge in speech, but that I think is the next thing that's going to happen over time. So you could build an AI agent today and instantly make it multilingual, if you build it the right way. The thing which we all joked about and heard about is hallucination, right? In actual business use cases, whether it's a service use case or employee experience use case, we're seeing this plummet in terms of just general hallucination. As a consumer using ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, you may still experience some of that, basically, but in an actual AI agent for a specific business use case, because of the way you're able to build that AI agent with the guardrails, the hallucination levels are not a concern as we see it. And of course, the biggest element of this all is the cost, right? The costs have plummeted. To some extent, when you think about the 80-20 rule, that 80% of the use cases can use 20% of the common models that exist out there, essentially the cost is insignificant now, basically. So used to be a concern, but now because the cost has come down, all those enterprise AI projects, from an ROI point of view, are viable at this point in time. And lastly, the latency. Latency is still an issue, can be solved with some good design, basically. It's more of an issue in a synchronous, like a voice call, essentially. But that also, we have seen significant improvement in the latency of the responses that come back. Again, the design of your AI agent has a lot to do with, dealing with latency in many ways. But all of these models, obviously the foundational models are trained on whatever data they were trained on. But then you have data in the enterprise. It's in your data center. There's data in all of those enterprise apps, whether they're on-prem or SaaS apps. Cloud services that you've used to build your own apps, if you will, where data is stored. Endpoint devices where data is stored. Regular databases, data lakes or data warehouses where data is stored. And like I said earlier, document storage, basically, which becomes a very important source of data that you need for your AI agent to perform the way you want it to perform. And the integrations of these data, the relational elements of this data also is important. So this is one of the large challenges, which bringing structured data and unstructured data together to make it available to an AI agent to perform a certain function is the new art that many of the enterprises are figuring out how to solve for. But data by itself is not ready, basically. You need to take that structured and unstructured data, do the extraction, which in itself is a challenge, because when you use the APIs or any other extraction methodology, you still get data in a predefined format, which may need cleaning, normalization, and maybe some transformation, and then you use the data in some cases to fine-tune models, basically with your enterprise data, and in other cases to create tools for integration, essentially. This is a massive task, right? Because think about the data that an enterprise may have in their enterprise. It's created over different periods of time for different purposes, stored in different places, in different formats, and making that data available either for fine-tuning or for tool development is going to be a significant challenge. Even with MCP, that's just a way to access that data, but the data quality is an ongoing issue. And then you come with, okay, you have the models, you have your data in some format that you're able to use. Okay, how do I build this AI agent? See, up until now, over the last 10 years or so, most AI agents, call them conversational bots, call them whatever you like, basically, were fundamentally deterministic applications, right? Yes, there was some AI being used around NLP. There was no generation, basically. So you're not generating anything. So it was scripted responses. And these were deterministic workflows. The good thing about deterministic workflows is they can't go wrong. You're not asking the model to make any decision. They work like any other UI application that we all use. If it works, it works. I think where the world is going, and I know on the far right over there, basically all the rage is about agentic and autonomous applications, full autonomy with reasoning and planning and all of that is where all the hype is about. But when you look at our customer base, they're here in the middle, basically. So when you take a bank or an insurance company or a healthcare company, and they're engaging with their customers, the use cases are so important for that entity because it represents their brand, essentially. They cannot just trust that a fully autonomous agent will deliver everything that they want. But they want to use the models because there's value in using them. So we're seeing part deterministic and part autonomous execution of these workflows. So part of the workflow would start out as deterministic, where you can keep the workflow within a certain boundary, a certain structure. Basically, it will use the model to generate those responses. And then when it comes out, based on certain conditions, it will then again go to deterministic. So that, we believe, is truly what enterprises are deploying right now. We see it. 70% of our customers who had deterministic workflows have now moved to that semi-autonomous workflow. And this is both in voice use cases as well as digital use cases out there and in all types of use cases. But then when you look at AI agents and the progression of AI agents and where they are, this is a very simple, agent. This is what bots used to be. You get a trigger from some environment, a human asking a question or an event from a system or whatever. There's a current state, basically, and there are predefined rules and actions that are defined inside your AI agent, and it will then generate an action, basically. From there, I think where we're at today is in that current state where the trigger comes into, essentially, there are models that are able to, understand your objective, use the context, and be able to generate a response at that particular step within an AI agent, basically. This is what is being implemented today. And then the actions and the tools that are used to take the actions are still the same at this point in time. Where we're trying to get to, and this is still in the works, not many enterprises have deployed this yet, is a goal-based agent, basically, where there is some level of planning that comes into defining the next actions that need to be taken to achieve those objectives, basically. And this is, I think, going to be the big value creator in the enterprise for high value use cases, basically. So it's still an experimentation phase in most companies. The chief AI officer with an innovation team is building some things, but nothing is being put into production. But this is where I think most of the enterprises will want to engage in. The next big one is, success-based agents, right? How do you measure the success of the response or the success of the plan that was created, essentially? This is again in the future, where you have agents that sort of score the responses or score the actions that are being taken. And the holy grail of all is a learning agent, basically, right? Where you have a critique agent that looks at what the primary agent did and teaches the primary agent to do things differently to achieve a particular objective. And in my opinion, this is far out. It's not something that like anybody is actually put into deployment, into production. And I don't think anybody is going to dare put this into production anytime soon, basically. And that is when, that's the holy grail of full autonomy, basically self-learning and self-adjusting kind of environment. So what is the purpose of all this, right? Why are we doing this? This is based on some research that we pulled from different sources. The impact of AI in almost all the primary functions in a company, whether it's service, product development, sales, marketing, operations, can be very, very significant. And it's not just automation. It's also the speed at which these functions perform their duties, basically. The other element that we don't measure as much, basically, in our businesses is the speed at which decisions are made, basically. I mean, we're all used to decisions being made in meetings and discussions and things like that, for which you need analysis, data analysis, and we all know how many analytics firms that are out there. Basically, with the models, you can make that analysis happen instantly, assess the risk, and also allocate the appropriate resources for the decision that's made, basically, and also to do some scenario planning around, ABC scenarios and what would achieve the best outcomes. And the thing that we all know, right? The thing I hate about my job the most is search, finding information. There's information in email, there's information in all those drives and applications and assimilating all that to be able to just understand something and then be able to process it in your mind and make a decision, basically. That is one of the areas where we are seeing significant improvement, but it's less measurable and less possible to put a value to it, basically. I was talking to a CFO of a large enterprise a week ago, and we were talking about how AI for work, which is one of our offerings, are going to make employees more productive. And his question was, okay, so how many hours will this save? We said maybe 4 hours a week. He said, okay, what is that employee going to do in those 4 hours a week? Go on a bike ride, go to the bar, or actually do some work, essentially, right? We don't know. And there's no way to measure how much more productive that employee was, especially white-collar employees, basically. So while intrinsically, whether it's finding information, creating content, not having to switch different applications to find what you want, or even be able to collate information from different applications and sources to analyze that information, is intrinsically feels like it makes our life easier. But just because it makes our life easier, does the enterprise get more value out of it is still a question mark, which I think will remain as time goes on. So the common understanding is AI will deliver automation, basically, and therefore reduce cost for an enterprise. That's true. But what we are actually seeing in enterprises is that what we're actually seeing in enterprises is it actually increases the speed of business, basically. So the speed at which you build product, the speed at which you're able to sell it, the speed at which you can solve a customer's service request, the speed at which you can put capital to work in a new initiative, basically, which essentially means you're going to grow. It's all about growth as opposed to reducing cost and increasing your bottom line, basically, which is also going to happen. And there are different studies on how much can AI being applied to business use cases deliver. Operational savings is obvious, right? You automate a lot of things, you need less labor, and you do that. Process automation, as we know it with RPA and BPM engines, has been around for a while, but with the reasoning and the planning capabilities of the models that if you use in a particular process, you will be able to automate that process for sure, but also automate it intelligently. We all heard about, intelligent automation, that is equal to RPA. It's far from the truth. True intelligent automation is coming now with agentic AI, basically. And the whole process automation industry is going to go through some change. Increasing your revenue, that is something that's less understood and less funded for AI projects till now, basically. It's not because the chief revenue officer or the CEO or the CFO don't want to do that. It's just that it's not been analyzed as to how can I use AI to increase revenue. So when I look at the business cases across all the large enterprises in financial services, retail, healthcare, telecom, which are some of the verticals that we focus on, essentially, it's rarely that I see that, hey, I'm going to apply AI to increase my top line by 20%, essentially. And then, of course, even less understood is, are my customers happier? Is my retention rate higher, basically? These are things that are not measurable just yet. Really? Okay. So the real benefit of AI over time, I think, will go from cost reduction to focus on growth over a period of time. And then we spent a lot of time with a lot of our enterprises. We have enterprise customers. We have close to about 500 customers. And these are some of the largest banks, some of the largest insurance companies, retail companies, healthcare companies, and so on and so forth. Generally, the use cases fall into three categories, and that's what we go to market with, which is service, work, and process. Service is external-facing, customer-facing. Work is internal-facing for your employees. And process automation is any kind of process anywhere in the company, in general. Yeah. But we're here in Silicon Valley, right? Everybody, whether you're a hyperscaler, you're an enterprise application company, you're a CCaaS, customer experience company, open source vendors, everybody are providing capabilities to build AI agents. So you take a large company, and what's happening is these AI agents are being built for simple or complex use cases in so many different ways, basically, so many different ways. They're writing a lot of code, which eventually we all know is going to be a nightmare to maintain. They're buying AI agents from They're existing vendors, built by the vendors. They're using IT services firms to build a bunch of these AI agents. So when you think about one of the most critical technologies being applied in your company, and that is zero standardization, basically. And there's this chaos that's developing as we speak right now, and nobody has control, essentially, of any of this in any enterprise that we've talked to. But to have control, what do you need? You need an identity system for these AI agents, right? You could use the ones that Okta and others provide, but these are different, basically. These identities are different. You need the ability for these agents to discover one another, right? Like you have an employee directory, you need a place where these agents can look up other agents that they can use to do their jobs. These agents, like humans, need a purpose, right? They have to have a goal. They have to be able to achieve something, essentially. The agents need to have roles and permissions to data, basically, and the humans who have access to those agents. They need to be able to communicate with each other, and we've seen some communication protocols recently, A2A and things like that have come out as protocols, but you still need to implement the ability for these agents to call each other. And most importantly, you need some kind of orchestration system, basically, and you're not going to have one master orchestrator, you're going to have many, depending on the goals of a particular application, essentially. So these are not something that you want to go build, some of these things with open source, buy some things from some vendor, or build with a platform like ours. You need to be able to, as an enterprise, find a way to standardize on all of this. So you bring some sanity to this as these AI agents get deployed within your enterprise. So our theory, and we did a study with BCG also about what does an enterprise need to be able to deploy these AI agents within the enterprise. You need a platform. You need a platform that can do all of these things. It has to be no code, pro code, so that pro developers and citizen employees can build these AI agents depending on the complexity. You need to standardize in the way these AI agents are built. You need to choose the level of autonomy that each agent needs to have. Some can be fully autonomous, some could be semi-autonomous. You need a library of prompts and templates of AI agents that you can use as a starting point so that you're not starting from scratch. You want these AI agents to be broadly built across your enterprise and not be dependent on IT, essentially. Another very important thing is, as I said earlier, the models are changing, the frameworks are changing, new protocols are coming in. You need to be agnostic of all of that, basically. You don't want to be dependent on a single vendor and tied to a single vendor, and then find that that vendor doesn't have the latest and greatest that is available. And the other element is, how do you control all of this? Is there a central control panel where all these AI agents can be managed centrally? Is there auditing? Is there traceability? Is there observability, explainability? That's another big element. And how do I do this fast? So we are a company, we've been a platform company from the beginning in conversational AI. And over the last couple of years, we've transformed that into an agentic AI platform. Fundamentally, we provide a no-code platform with all of the tools and frameworks and runtime engines to build any kind of AI agent you want, all the way from deterministic to fully autonomous. There's multi-agent orchestration. There's an agentic RAG search and data platform. There are several tools for you to fine-tune models with your own data and host those models. These are open source models. There's complete traceability, observability, and explainability of what's happening at every step of the AI agent as it progresses, so that you have some visualization of what's happening. And most importantly, the security, the governance, and the scalability. I mean, some of the largest deployments in the world of AI are on our platform, which many of you may not know. We have a large healthcare company who processes 700 million transactions through us on an annual basis. We have a large bank who processes about 300 million. We have a large e-commerce giant, basically here in the Valley, who processes about 300 million transactions a year. These are complex brand ruining or brand enhancing, applications, basically. So we know a thing or two about how to provide a platform which is secure, scalable, and compliant. And 60% of our customers, unlike startups in the Valley, are in regulated industries. So the safety and security, the encryption, the anonymization of data, PII masking, all of those things are applied in these deployments. And most importantly, we are model agnostic, data agnostic, cloud agnostic, and channel agnostic. So you can deploy these AI agents in 50 plus, digital and voice channels. We run on all the clouds, basically, as well as for some customers on-prem within their own data centers, basically. We work with all the model companies, essentially, and we've integrated with all the components that they provide, the APIs and other things. And we have pre-built connectors to name the structured application, structured data application, or the unstructured data source. All the integrations are there so that you don't have to build all of that. And we go to market with essentially 3 offerings. AI for Work, which is a combination of enterprise search, using models. And we, with our search and data platform, you have the ability to customize the extraction pipeline and the retrieval pipeline. And we provide our own fine-tuned models for extraction, retrieval, and response generation. So you're not having to depend on the foundational models. We also simplified it enough to create various types of AI agents by citizen employees. So anybody can sit there, create an AI agent, deploy it, share it with others. But also your pro developers, professional developers can go create more complex agents that can be deployed for employees. And lastly, there are pre-built AI agents for ITSM with integrations to ServiceNow, BMC Helix, HR integrations to Workday and SuccessFactors and Oracle HCM and recruiting that come with AI for Work. AI for Service is what we do a lot of. These are the deployments I mentioned earlier. This is automating a call or a chat that comes in, then assisting the human agent with an AI agent in real time to make the human agent more efficient, and finally scoring the interaction of the customer with the AI agent and with the human agent, every single interaction, to be able to find opportunities to improve the AI agent or the human agent. And lastly, and I believe this is probably one of the largest areas where AI is going to be applied, is doing process automation with asynchronous workflows by using models at each step of the workflow to process large amounts of data with planning and reasoning coming into play, essentially. So in addition to that, we have an agent marketplace. You can go on our website, have a look. There's hundreds of tools, hundreds of AI agents that are pre-developed for different use cases. That gives everybody a starting point. It's completely free, and people are leveraging it today to be able to use as a starting point to develop their own AI agents. But your world is going to look like this at some point. Each enterprise is going to look like this. There's going to be obviously your C-suite, your different departments, your human employees. You're going to have orchestration agents, and you're going to have AI agents all over the place. So the one thing which is less understood today is, as this proliferates an enterprise, how do you control it? How do you govern it? There has to be a higher layer within a platform which controls the AI agents, whether you bought it, you built it, however it came to be, centrally, essentially. You need to do logging, tracing, observability, explainability centrally, essentially. You need to manage identities, roles, permissions centrally, basically. So as we develop the platform as something with which you can design, build, test, deploy, manage, measure AI agents, or even fine-tune models, basically, we are moving forward to become that central control plane or governance plane, regardless of whether you bought an AI agent from somebody or you built one using whichever framework or platform, or you built one on our platform. So that's where we're going as a company as we move forward. And we work with our customers very closely. We have over 600 partners. We provide expert services both to our partners and to our customers to make them successful. And of course, as any platform company, the support services required to make that happen. And we've done reasonably well in terms of our reviews. Customers have given us good reviews in these online sites, got peer reviews and GD Proud. So while we are less known in this part of the world or this part of the country, basically, we're pretty well known and liked with our current customer base and the way we do engagement with our customers. So as a company, out of the 1,000-odd people that we have in the company, more than 60% of them are in product development and R&D. That's our secret sauce, basically. We go deep, we go broad, we go complex is fun for us, basically, and we do that really well. So the things that we are working on is thinking about agent orchestration. How can you take all the patterns of orchestration and implement them, but more importantly, come up with a declarative language of some sort to enable customers to build their own orchestrators. Basically, today that doesn't exist. So that's coming soon. While RLHF, reinforcement learning with human feedback, is being applied, has been applied to foundational models, basically, we see a need for RLHF for AI agents, basically. So that input, that human feedback of giving an award or not, basically, based on the performance of the AI agent is missing, basically. So you need a framework to be able to take that human feedback and feed that into the AI agent to improve the AI agent. Agent interoperability is still a concept. Google released A2A, what is it, 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, basically. So that may solve it, it may not solve it, we don't know that yet, but it is a need that's out there. And then governance. No matter how great a framework I give you to govern all these AI agents, it's still a human having to govern it. But can you create an AI agent or autonomous governance agents that will do the governance for you? Basically, that's an area that we're focused on. And then memory, whether short-term, long-term, scoped for a particular AI agent may exist. It exists in our platform today. But how do you create adaptive memory where the memory changes and therefore the context changes that an AI agent is able to use, basically. As a company, we're global, we're expanding into more geographic regions. Our sweet spot has always been B2C companies, banks, insurance, telecom, retail kind of companies, but now we're seeing a lot of demand from B2B companies. So we're expanding into that. And we've already expanded our use cases from service to other use cases. And we're one of the fastest growing enterprise AI companies out there. We almost doubled in the last 12 months. We expect to double again in the next 12 months. So we're an established company. We didn't go to Sand Hill and raise money yesterday, and we're here today to talk to you, basically. So that's who we are. I hope this is useful. Happy to answer any questions.